Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Allie Gold-Roberts, and I'm the Director of State Policy at CERES. I'm here to welcome you on behalf of CERES, Chambers for Innovation and Clean Energy, Environmental Entrepreneurs, also known as E2, and Green Energy Ohio. Our organizations represent business interests throughout Ohio, many of which are here today to share their thoughts on House Bill 6. Before we begin, I would like to recognize and thank the legislators who are in attendance for today's discussion. We are being joined by State Representative Laura Lanise of Grove City, the primary sponsor of House Bill 746, and Representative Mike Skindell of Lakewood, primary sponsor of House Bill 738. Both bills would ensure a complete repeal of House Bill 6. We are also joined by Representative Juanita Brent of Cleveland and a co-sponsor of House Bill 738, and Senator Antonio from Lakewood, a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 346, which also proposes a complete repeal of House Bill 6. We thank you all for your leadership on this important issue and your dedication to restoring faith and confidence in our state government. We appreciate you all being part of this event. Given the incredible and serious allegations of corruption leveled by the U.S. Attorney, a repeal of House Bill 6 would restore public confidence and ensure the continued growth of Ohio's clean energy economy. Indeed, House Bill 6 was a blow to Ohio's economy, livelihoods, and clean energy future. The business leaders speaking today will highlight the impact of HB6 on job creation, economic development, and the future of clean energy investment in Ohio. We urge lawmakers listening today to heed the call for action from a diverse group of businesses and stakeholders on Ohio's clean energy future. Let's jump to the next slide. Before we dive into business testimony, I wanted to highlight this letter on behalf of 46 Ohio businesses, investors, trade associations, and employers, including national consumer and Fortune 500 brands like Ball Corporation, Burton, Cliff Bar, Facebook, General Mills, IKEA, and Nestle, as well as mid-sized companies in the energy sector, including Ameresco, Cree Lighting, Uplight, and many others. The letter, sent to Governor DeWine, Speaker Cupp, and President Obhoff in August, calls for an immediate repeal of House Bill 6 and restoration of Ohio's clean energy standards. HB6 has received unprecedented interest from a diverse group of stakeholders, underscoring the significant and negative impacts to businesses in Ohio. A handful of the letter's signatories will be speaking today, along with many other businesses and trade groups based in Ohio. Each business speaker will have about 5 minutes to share their testimony, and we will also have a few minutes at the end to answer questions. You may submit questions at any time during the webinar using the Q&A feature, and we will keep track of responses during the allocated Q&A time. You can also use the chat function to communicate with me directly or to write to everybody. So with that, it is my deep pleasure to kick off our testimony, and we will begin with Becky Campbell, Government Affairs Manager at First Solar. Becky, do you mind unmuting your line and taking it away?
Sure, thanks, Allie. So as Allie mentioned, good afternoon. My name is Becky Campbell. I lead First Solar's legislative and regulatory affairs efforts throughout the eastern half of the country. And first, I wanted to just start by thanking today's organizers and offering us an opportunity to speak about First Solar support for the repeal of House Bill 6. First Solar was born in Ohio in 1999 and is headquartered in Arizona. And we power communities, innovation, and prosperity with cleaner solar technology designed in America. We make the most of each day so Americans can make the most of solar energy, and we call ourselves America's Solar Company. First Solar is America's largest solar manufacturing company, with the biggest solar manufacturing footprint in both the United States as well as the Western Hemisphere. We're the only American solar manufacturer that has shipped over 25 gigawatts of solar modules, and we're the only American company that ranks among the world's 10 largest solar manufacturers. We employ more than 1,500 associates at good wages in our Perrysburg and Lake Township manufacturing facilities. By staying focused on innovation and competitiveness, First Solar has weathered storms that have claimed a lot of other solar manufacturers in the US. We've doubled down on our commitment to invest in manufacturing and innovation in Ohio. And late last year, we completed the latest expansion of our manufacturing capacity in Ohio to help meet the growing demand for our technology. The new facility in Lake Township represents over $1 billion of cumulative investment. And since the company's birth, we've contributed well over $3 billion to Ohio's economy. We appreciate the opportunity to share our support for the repeal of House Bill 6. As some of you may remember, during last spring's hearings on this bill, I repeatedly expressed First Solar support for the state's RPS program, which, unlike House Bill 6, we believe is a market-based program that signaled Ohio's support for the fastest growing source of clean energy in the country, solar energy. We continue to believe that an RPS is the ideal policy mechanism to ensure that Ohio reaps the full benefits of its solar energy potential. And for this reason, we support an immediate repeal of House Bill 6, which would result in reinstatement of Ohio's RPS program. During last year's testimony, I also cautioned that a move away from the RPS program would cause companies like First Solar to reconsider their development strategies in this market. And that wasn't an idle threat. After passage of last year's bill, First Solar made the difficult decision to exit the vast majority of our Ohio project development efforts. 2020 has already been a hallmark year for solar development in Ohio, and reinstatement of the RPS would provide renewable developers the market certainty that they need to continue making large in-state investments in Ohio. And again, we believe the RPS is a market-driven policy mechanism, and it works. It's proven that it works in other markets. While you've likely heard claims that House Bill 6 is responsible for the recent surge in utility scale solar development that we've been witnessing in Ohio, that's just not true. House Bill 6 benefited a small number of in-state utility scale solar projects, some of which are using First Solar's Ohio manufactured solar panels. However, I want to stress that these projects were well into the development process before the bill was passed. And in fact, House Bill 6, the funding that was earmarked for those projects in House Bill 6 was only available to projects that had already completed the OPSB permitting process, which requires significant investment in and of itself. The previous RPS and strong demand from corporate sustainability commitments are the factors that are largely responsible for the in-state solar development pipeline that exists in Ohio today, not House Bill 6. While First Solar supports a repeal of HB6, I do want to share a slight nuance in our position. Our company is sympathetic to the solar developers that have been caught up in the middle of the political scandal caused by this bill. And as we noted last year in our testimony, companies demand a stable, transparent policy environment in which to do business. And the solar developers that were promised renewable generation funds through House Bill 6 have been left in a really awkward situation where many of them have further invested in this state, some having fully financed and commenced construction on their projects, working under the assumption that Ohio would honor its commitment to supply the promised renewable generation funds. Many of these companies opposed House Bill 6 throughout the hearing process last year and have not been accused of any wrongdoing in the ongoing FBI investigation. And for those reasons, we believe it's only fair that Ohio create business certainty for these companies by standing by its previous commitment to provide the modest renewable generation fund monies that were set aside for them in House Bill 6. But aside from that, we are proud to manufacture our advanced thin film solar modules in Ohio. And we look forward to further investing in this market and supplying our Ohio manufactured solar panels to customers that continue to plan to deploy them in the ground across the state. And as America's solar company and the largest US solar panel manufacturer in the Western Hemisphere, we hope that Ohio will work towards a sustainable and growing market for utility scale solar. And we believe that repealing House Bill 6 would be a first step in the right direction towards that. Again, really appreciate your time and the opportunity to provide some comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Becky. We really appreciate it. With that, I'll kick it over to Steve Malink, who is the CEO of Malink Corporation. Steve, please take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Malink. I'm the founder and CEO of Malink Corporation in Cincinnati. Our company provides energy efficiency and renewable energy solutions for commercial building owners across the US and world. Our customers include national retail, restaurants, supermarket, and hotel chains, as well as hospitals, schools, and the US government, from military bases to VA hospitals. We have over 100 employees. Our two office buildings are two of the greenest state-of-the-art buildings in the country. Lawmakers and the media who would like to visit our company and see what we do are welcome for tours. As we know, House Bill 6 was passed into law under the corrupt influence of First Energy and members of the Ohio House. First Energy spent up to $61 million to bribe state politicians, as well as lie and scare the public about a Chinese invasion of our electric grid to secure the $1.3 billion bailout of their coal and nuclear power plants. Many have called it the biggest scandal in Ohio history. While some lawmakers have called for its repeal, some are doubling down on House Bill 6 by saying that despite the corrupt nature in which it was passed, the bill is good policy. However, I'm appalled at this. Any bill that takes $61 million to lie, cheat, and steal its way into existence, and which breaks laws and reduces the trust and confidence in our state government, does not make good policy. Integrity, ethics, and legal process matters. Moreover, the reason behind saying that House Bill 6 is good policy is totally false. Bailing out a poorly managed company that has continually made bad investments over the many years does not make good policy. Coal and nuclear power are dying industries, as they are the most expensive and risky forms of electric generation today. Virtually no one in the US is building new coal and nuclear power plants for these reasons. They are 20th century business models. We should be skating to where the puck is going in the future, not where the puck was in the past. This is why utilities, investors, and governments across the country and around the world are increasingly putting their money behind solar and wind power. In fact, NextEra, a utility company based in Florida, is now the most valuable energy company in the United States, even more valuable than ExxonMobil. Why? Because they are the world's largest developer of solar and wind farms. They are the Tesla of the utility industry. Meanwhile, the only news that First Energy makes is bad news, relating to its corrupt business practices and falling stock price. For over 10 years, we have been witness to First Energy unduly influencing our lawmakers and getting them to pass laws to maintain its near monopoly-like powers in our state and prevent the clean energy industry from gaining ground. They prefer to legislate their way to success rather than innovate and compete like all other industries must. All along, certain lawmakers and state officials have appeared way too happy to play in this dirty sandbox. I know they are hoping that House Bill 6, the fiasco, will just blow away with time, but they seriously underestimate the resolve of the public if the illegally passed bailout charges start hitting our energy bills in January 2021. The cities of Cincinnati and Columbus have already filed lawsuits against this from happening, and there will inevitably be many more, including the likelihood of a class action lawsuit on behalf of all Ohio citizens against their government. The solution is for everyone from the governor, House Speaker, and Senate President to demand a full and immediate repeal of this corrupt law. And if they don't, it's up to more ethical lawmakers to fill the leadership void. And if they don't, we, the public, will. Moreover, the solution is a new replacement bill that understands Ohio should not be investing in old and dying industries, such as coal and nuclear, but in new and growing industries, such as solar and wind power. And the reason solar and wind power are growing are not only because they are the lowest marginal cost of energy, but they are clean and safe forms of energy from cradle to grave. Therefore, the new replacement bill should not decrease our renewable energy standards, but increase them. Our businesses, schools, and local governments want more clean energy, not less. Just ask the fastest growing and most successful companies out there, from Apple and Google, to Microsoft and Facebook, to Amazon and Walmart, and just ask almost every country and major city in the world. Our company's solar business is growing like never before, despite the pandemic and despite Ohio's backward energy policy, because most everyone wants more clean energy. In fact, we are doing more work outside of Ohio than inside, not only in blue states like Illinois and New York, but in red states like Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Texas. We wish we were fulfilling Ohio's potential as a leader in the growing clean energy space, but we will go where the opportunity is greatest. In conclusion, we need laws that are founded on integrity and created for the common good. Furthermore, if Ohio is going to invest in anything, it should be for the future, not the past. The future is solar and wind power, as well as battery storage and electric vehicles. I hope Ohio will help lead this greatest opportunity of the 21st century, the clean energy revolution. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate your remarks. With that, I'll introduce Brent Gravley, who's the Vice President of Sales at Cliff Bar. Brent, take it away.
Thanks so much, Allie. As Allie mentioned, my name is Brent Gravley. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Cliff Bar and Company and a Hamilton County resident. Cliff Bar fully supports full repeal of House Bill 6. And our opinion is not only was House Bill 6 never subject to a just and transparent legislative process, but it was also bad policy. It's been well established that the bill directs millions of taxpayer dollars to bail out money for failing power plants and antiquated industries. The bill also significantly weakened, essentially nullified, Ohio's renewable energy and energy efficiency standards. So if I'm in your shoes, I'm probably wondering, why does Cliff Bar, an energy bar manufacturer from California, care so much about energy policy in the state of Ohio? It's a good question, and there's 3 reasons for that. The first is that while Cliff is California-based, we have important partners in Ohio, and we want to speak on their behalf. Everything from our retailer partners to logistics partners to the farmers that grow ingredients for our bars, they're doing business and operating in Ohio. As a matter of fact, there are more Cliff Bars that come through the state of Ohio than any other state in the United States. And for that matter, there are more energy bars coming through the city of Columbus, Ohio than any other city in the world. We have FST Logistics is just outside of Columbus, and they represent our largest logistics partner. Second, we take our ingredients very seriously, as consumers have historically demanded of us, and frankly, we demand of ourselves. Energy is a critical ingredient and one that we consider just as important as oats or chocolate chips or raisins. And we have made a commitment, and we source 100% renewable energy in all of our fully owned and operated facilities. And we are partnering with all of the counterparts who represent our supply chain to hit a 50% renewable standard for their energy by the end of 2021. Obviously, that being said, the ability to procure predictable renewable energy for facilities is a major consideration, both for us and our partners when it comes to where and how we will develop new facilities and invest in our business. Prolonged uncertainty around renewables has historically, in the last several years, made Ohio a less competitive place for us and our partners to invest. Third, energy efficiency is our least cost resource. It basically comes for free once you've made the investment. Efficiency programs at a state level are essential to overcoming the upfront costs and setting businesses like ours up for long-term savings once we've made those improvements. We believe, as Cliff Bar, by reinstating renewable and energy efficient standards, Ohio can do 3 things. 1, drive a clean energy economy in the state. 2, bring costs down for businesses in Ohio. And 3rd, and probably most importantly in my perspective, support innovation and investment in the state. At the end of the day, predictable, stable, clean energy policy sends a signal to a company like ours and our partners that Ohio is committed to the same things we are, and a good place to invest and a safe place to put our money and our business. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today, and I encourage you to take our concerns and those of our peers seriously and move to repeal House Bill 6 immediately. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Brent. It's my pleasure to introduce Don Gilligan, President of the National Association of Energy Service Companies. Don.
Thanks, Allie. The National Association of Energy Service Companies is the leading trade association of the energy services industry in the US. We have about 90 members, and collectively our members do about $7 billion a year of energy efficiency, demand response, and renewable energy and distributed generation projects, primarily for public sector and institutional customers. So for example, ESCOs have implemented about $1.5 billion worth of projects for Ohio public schools over the last 25 years. Our projects produce about 10 direct and indirect jobs per $1 million of project value, along with significant emissions reductions that come at no additional cost to ratepayers. So why are we interested in the repeal of HB6? As a national organization, we think that it's a time to emphasize what energy efficiency can do in our public buildings. My own personal background is I grew up in Cincinnati, so I have some affinity for Ohio issues. And I want to focus on schools as an example of the importance of the repeal. So get down into the weeds a little bit, but it I think is useful so that you can see what these incentive dollars actually mean in terms of real projects. So Ohio schools, like schools across the country, have significant deferred maintenance needs. A recent report from the General Accounting Office, the Federal General Accounting Office, says that majority of public schools need substantial improvements in their HVAC systems. And these deficiencies, which the GAO noted, are exacerbated as schools try to upgrade or rebuild their ventilation systems to make their buildings safe. Most schools, unfortunately, have no obvious way to get the capital appropriations they need, as both the state and local governments are struggling with COVID-related budget shortfalls. This problem is particularly acute in older urban districts, as well as small town and rural school districts. Many schools, however, are sitting on a funding source that can make a big dent in this unmet capital need. That funding source is the money that they are currently spending on wasted energy and the maintenance of decrepit equipment. That is a substantial part of their deferred maintenance backlog. This currently wasted money can be repurposed into a payment stream that can fund capital improvements through what we call energy performance contracts. The way these contracts work is that private investors put up the money and are repaid from savings that's guaranteed by ESCOs over the life of the improvements. So these projects are typically anywhere from 10 to 15 years in a public school. The private capital is available at historically low interest rates through a variety of on and off balance sheet financing vehicles, and capital providers range from local banks to specialized companies that place long-term institutional money. These companies compete aggressively for each project. Energy performance contract is not a new concept. It's been around for about 30 years. We've implemented about $60 billion worth of projects. The success of the concept, the success of the projects is documented in numerous studies by national laboratories. And energy performance contracting has been promoted as a method for implementing projects by both Republican and Democratic administrations over the past 2 decades. So, for example, the US Department of Energy today has a very comprehensive, what they call toolkit for performance contracting projects that takes customers all the way from the initial idea or initial assessment of the project all the way through contract language templates for these long-term 10 to 15-year contracts. That's on the DOE website, available for anybody. So why do we care about, if we're steaming along doing billions of dollars worth of projects a year, why do we care about the repeal of HB6? Well, simply put, the energy performance contract mechanism can't do everything that public schools need done today. So I'll give you one quick example. You may have read over the last few months about the problems of opening public schools and the fact that the public school systems, ventilation systems in most of the buildings are not up to snuff in terms of what are the requirements to combat the COVID virus. So when you look at these projects, increasing the ventilation through the building doesn't produce savings. It costs money. Once through ventilation, which means taking the air, just opening the dampers and blowing air through the building, which is what many buildings are trying to do today, can raise the heat load in the building anywhere from 100 to 150%. By contrast, a well-designed retrofit that doesn't just open the dampers and blow air through the building can reduce this energy penalty, but not completely eliminate it. What the incentive from the utility company can do is buy down the cost of the retrofit design, the cost of the new motors and fans, the cost of advanced demand control ventilation systems, so that the school district can afford the filtration and the increased energy cost that goes along with this increased ventilation. So we think that these kinds of incentives, even though they only pay a fraction of the cost of the project, really make the difference, because energy savings can't support some of these additional costs in public buildings. So in closing, we think that HB6 simply makes the situation that schools face worse rather than better. The choice is pretty clear. We can either reduce the cost to taxpayers for retrofitting and operating schools so they can operate through the COVID pandemic and be more safe, efficient, resilient, and flexible community resources, or we can subsidize some power plants that, as previous speakers have said, are invalids that really can't compete in the private marketplace. So we urge the immediate repeal of HB6. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Don. Really appreciate it. It's my pleasure to introduce Belinda Kinley, Vice President at Energy Optimizers. Belinda, take it away.
Hi, I'm happy to be here today. Thank you. I'm with Energy Optimizers USA, based in Dayton, Ohio. Actually started a number of years ago by Greg Smith, whom you'll be hearing from a little later. Mr. Gilligan just gave a very good overview of what our company does. We're an energy savings company. We provide energy efficiency services primarily to schools and local government. Since we've been in business in 2009, we've done about $140 million worth of energy savings projects in schools primarily, some in local government, and we've saved over $81 million in energy savings for these school customers. That translates to saving the jobs of 1,300 teachers. That's money that the districts had to invest in their classrooms rather than paying utility bills. We've got a company of about 22 people, mostly white collar, but also some blue collar, with energy engineers, project managers, lighting installers, all sorts of white collar and blue collar related jobs. And we are a thriving business that has done very, very well in Ohio and Kentucky. So we are really disappointed with the House Bill 6. Once the utility companies cut off the rebates to schools, to our customers, including schools and local government, it makes it much more difficult for them to proceed with a project. So without those rebates, some may choose not to proceed with their projects. And I should describe what these projects include: interior and exterior lighting, HVAC upgrades, building controls, and solar, among other things. These projects save taxpayer dollars. There's no levy required to implement a project, and the savings allows these school districts to put money into the classrooms. And then since the pandemic, we know they have also had great expenses related to indoor air quality solutions. So these projects are critically important, and without the House Bill 6 being repealed, I don't know what's going to happen. We have a thriving clean energy world economy in Ohio, and this definitely will slow it down. Businesses will be reluctant to come here. We know that businesses coming from outside Ohio are always looking for sustainability and, sorry about that, and other environmentally friendly measures, and this will make them look twice at Ohio, I'm afraid. So we encourage the legislators to be bold, repeal House Bill 6, and come up with legislation that supports a clean energy economy. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Belinda. It's my pleasure to introduce Michaela Piper, the Executive Director of Paulding County Chamber of Commerce. Michaela.
Hi, I am the Executive Director of the Paulding Chamber of Commerce in Northwest Ohio, and the Paulding Chamber is dedicated to the economic health and vitality of Paulding County in the entire Northwest Ohio region. We're committed to working with the business community, educators, and government to establish the best possible business environment. In my community, we understand and we're grateful every day for the income that wind energy is generating, as well as new jobs it's creating, all without one penny being spent on infrastructure. No additional water, sewer, or roads were required in the building of all of our wind farms. They're generating millions every year for our community and will continue to do so for decades to come. So it's disheartening to fathom why our state has still not repealed House Bill 6, a bill clearly tainted with corruption and bribery. We all know that Fortune 500 companies and smaller are demanding to be powered by renewable energy, and Ohio has dozens of companies knocking on its door to invest in renewable projects across the state. What signal does that send then when our state policymakers fail to address mismanagement and unethical leadership while not encouraging wind and solar, which are now cheaper to install than nuclear, gas, and coal? No greater investment than wind farm development has provided economic growth for our county. Wind farms are #1 source of tax revenue in Paulding County, providing an impressive new tax revenue for our schools, new income for area landowners, and new revenues for local businesses. In addition, wind has brought hundreds of new and temporary jobs during the construction phase, as well as permanent wind farm jobs with highly paid, highly trained staff. Wind development directly affects a lot of my chamber members, large and small, who supply goods and services to each new development. Because of these benefits, wind farm development has been the #1 opportunity for economic growth in Paulding County, as well as other counties in Ohio with wind farms, with solar farms looking to catch up. For these reasons, I request that our state repeals House Bill 6 immediately. As we consider to replace the bill, the state should make sure not to restrict or in any way include roadblocks that will weaken renewable energy development, renewable energy standards, or energy efficiency. The long-term consequences of House Bill 6, as it will stunt economic growth and job growth in my county and in the Buckeye State as a whole. Paulding County is a population of about 18,000 and has secured investments from Amazon, Microsoft, and General Motors, who have all pledged to become 100% renewable. Especially now during these uncertain times, let's not surrender that opportunity to grow our economy, give more opportunities to our residents, and to welcome new jobs from neighboring states. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michaela. It's my pleasure to introduce another CEO. It's the morning or afternoon of CEOs from Ohio. Jeff Greenfield, the president and founder of Third Sun Solar.
Yeah, correction. I'm just the president. My wife, Michelle, is the CEO. She gives her regards to everyone. But thanks for the introduction, and thanks for putting this together. This is a serious issue. My name is Jeff Greenfield, and my company, Third Sun Solar, is a 20-year-old installation and developer in solar here in Ohio. We currently have 35 direct employees and are probably responsible for more than 100 indirect jobs through subcontractor partners. And I'll point out that these jobs are full benefited jobs, some of the better jobs that you can find in our part of the state. Furthermore, I'm on the board of directors of the NABCEP, our National Standards Organization. And so I interact with solar companies across the country working in all the other markets. And it's embarrassing when they ask me how this happens in Ohio and how such policy can get put forwards. And after the news broke of the bribery scandal, I had a better explanation. And they said, well, surely this legislation is going to be repealed now that the public understands what happened. And so far, I'm still embarrassed to say that it has not been swiftly repealed. And I look forward to having a better answer for them. So we are a developer and installer. We do residential projects all the way up to megawatt scale ground mount projects in Ohio and in surrounding states. And unfortunately, the impact of this legislation and even the threat of it as it was coming online killed projects. I can point to specific job losses, specific investment that went to other states instead of coming to Ohio because the policy favored giving away taxpayer money to subsidize out-of-date, inefficient energy generation. And to make matters worse, some of that was in other states. When our customers understand that their money is potentially going to subsidize coal-fired plants in Indiana, they're befuddled, and I am too. We basically have lost projects, and even though we're still growing, it's our confident assertion that we're growing at between 25 and 50% of the rate that we should be growing if this House Bill 6 had not become law. And we are aware of many developers and many investors that were developing projects in Ohio that then said, you know what, we've got other states that want clean energy. We're going to go there where we have certainty of policy and we have the kind of economic and policy conditions to allow us to make these large multi-million-dollar, multi-year investments. Without repeal, we again predict that we'll do okay, but doing okay is not what Ohio needs. Ohio needs to grow the clean energy sector. Ohio needs to attract the high-tech businesses that require renewable energy as part of their site conditions for developing and locating here. In this current kind of give it away to the dinosaurs and the fossil fuel old school energy interests, we're losing out on untold thousands of jobs as the high-tech companies decide where to put their call centers, their office buildings, their fulfillment centers, their computer data centers. So I guess from my perspective, I'd like to be proud of Ohio. I'd like to brag about our forward-looking legislature and economic community. I would like to be proud of the integrity with which our legislators hold their positions and stand up for their constituents, and not be laughed at national conferences when people read the headlines and just cannot understand how the legislators didn't immediately take action after the scandal broke and we learned how this bill was pushed through. Thank you very much, Howie.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Really appreciate your testimony. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Gary Easton from Arp Solar. Gary.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today. And well, it's convenient to follow Jeff because I'm going to echo a lot of the same comments. We're also an installation company here in Ohio. We're a state licensed electrical contractor and member of the Independent Electrical Contractors Association. And we employ about 18 people, from master electricians through designers and installers on the roof. So yeah, we've founded the company in 2008. So we've seen the policy in Ohio move through some different stages. We've seen even state-funded Ohio Department of Development grants that were encouraging residential and commercial installations back in the early days around 2007 and 8. We saw the roll in of the renewable energy standard following suit of a lot of states nationwide, setting goals for our state. It was pretty disappointing to see us moving in the other direction, because we also work in other states. So we work all over Pennsylvania and West Virginia and Indiana, and we've seen similar to what Jeff mentioned, that some of that investment go into other places where there are lots of projects, lots of opportunity in Ohio, but when investors are looking to spend those large amounts of money, it's unsettling to see the way that the legislator, I mean, and certainly in this case is literally for sale. You to spend enough dirty money, you can buy pretty dirty policy that is supporting dirty industry that doesn't even have an economic justification. So I would say I was also pretty shocked to when the news broke as to how this legislation came to be, because it was shocking to watch unfold when it went into place, that it did make a lot more sense that it was paid for. I heard today that the head of the PUCO's home was raided by the FBI. So this scandal continues to unfold, and yet we've seen no movement from our legislators. So it's disappointing. It's costing Ohio jobs and growth, and that money is not going, just not being spent. It's being spent in other places. So we're making a deliberate choice to forfeit our place in this growing new industry, and seems like a bad decision. So I appreciate the opportunity. We fully encourage the repeal of House Bill 6.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure next to introduce Patricia Sharkey, the Executive Director at Heat is Power Association and the Midwest Cogeneration Association. Patricia.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Sharkey. I'm the Policy Director of the Midwest Cogen Association and the Executive Director of the National Heat is Power Association. MCA and HIP members design, build, own, and operate cogeneration systems in Ohio, throughout the Midwest, and throughout the country. What is cogeneration? Many of you probably know, but I'll give a brief description anyway. Cogeneration is an umbrella term for a number of highly efficient power generation technologies. Combined heat and power is the best known of these. In fact, Thomas Edison's first power plant utilized CHP. CHP systems generate electricity utilizing any turbine or engine or other typical type of electricity generating equipment. And they can use any fuel from coal to natural gas to renewable gas. But unlike standard power generation, CHP systems capture the heat that would otherwise be lost in the electricity generation process, often as much as 33%, and use that waste heat to power industrial processes and heat university campuses and large college buildings. Considering both the electricity and the heat that's captured, CHP systems actually generate twice as much useful energy from a single quantum of fuel as does a standard combined cycle natural gas power plant. Waste heat to power is a sister technology. It involves capturing heat that would otherwise be lost in the industrial and other production processes and turning that waste heat into electricity. There are many waste heat to power technologies, but an easy example to visualize is to think of capturing the heat from an industrial smokestack and putting a turbine on that stack to generate electricity. That's one example of what we call waste heat to power. Ohio is currently home to 65 CHP and waste heat to power projects that are generating over 450 megawatts of electricity right now. These are located all over the state, from at businesses from Toledo to Zanesville, businesses like Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati, ArcelorMittal in Cleveland, SunCoke Energy in Haverhill, Cooper Tire in Finley, Sunco in Oregon, and Wausau Paper in Middleton. Some of these systems date back to the 1980s era, but many were installed within the last 5 years, and a number were facilitated by utility incentives offered through Ohio's energy efficiency programs. Two such examples are Solvay Specialty Polymers in Marietta and Creighton Polymers in Belpre, both of which installed new CHP systems in 2015. Creighton Polymers provides an example of a company making a $52 million investment, cutting its energy costs by 1/3 and achieving a 4.5-year payback period, in part due to utility incentives of $150,000 to $200,000 in annual rebates. CHP and waste heat to power technologies save Ohio businesses money, because when these businesses can spend less money on fuel, they have more money to invest in production, which creates more good-paying manufacturing jobs in Ohio. On-site generation systems also ensure Ohio businesses are more resilient and can keep the production lines rolling and the lights on in the face of tornadoes and other severe weather events and grid outages we experience in the Midwest. Because cogeneration creates more useful energy from every quantum of fuel consumed, it reduces statewide emissions of pollutants like particulate and SO2, as well as greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming and climate change. While Ohio currently has more than 450 megawatts of cogeneration, it could have much more, saving Ohio businesses much more and creating more jobs. In 2016, the Department of Energy estimated that the untapped potential for CHP and waste heat to power generation in Ohio is more than 11,000 megawatts. You might ask, why isn't every Ohio factory owner and university investing in these money-saving technologies right now? The primary barrier is the upfront capital cost required to install these systems. Although these efficient power generation systems produce electricity at a lower cost than the grid price and enable businesses to purchase less fuel for production and heating needs, the capital costs are generally over $1 million per megawatt. Notably, that cost is actually far less than the capital cost for a ratepayer-funded utility to generate and deliver a megawatt of electricity to that same business. Nonetheless, the upfront funding of that capital cost is a major decision for any business. While the investment payback period for these systems is often less than 5 years, many private businesses require less than 2.5-year return on capital investment. That is why restoring Ohio's energy efficiency incentive programs for CHP and waste heat to power is so important to Ohio's manufacturing sector and a good investment for Ohio's economy. The energy efficiency programs, which have now been waylaid by House Bill 6, not only support clean energy jobs in Ohio, these programs also stimulate the creation of new jobs throughout the manufacturing sector. When manufacturers save money on their energy costs, they can plow those dollars back into new equipment and new investments that strengthen their bottom line and strengthen Ohio's economy. As Ohio and the rest of the country come back from the economic downturn created by the pandemic, we expect to see new investment in our nation's infrastructure and manufacturing sector. As the country comes back, I would urge Ohio to join ranks with the many states in our region who recognize the value proposition of robust energy efficiency programs that increase the competitiveness of our Midwest manufacturing sector and attract and keep manufacturing jobs here in the Midwest. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address this important issue and thank Ceres for its work in putting this together.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Patricia. We really appreciate it. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Tim Powers, Research and Policy Associate at Innovatus Solar. Tim.
Yes, thank you, April. Tim with Innovatus Solar. Innovatus Solar, as a couple other similar folks have talked on this call, is an EPC installer. We provide design, build, and finance services for solar projects for both commercial and industrial, as well as utility customers in the Midwest, where we are one of the leading providers of those services, which we've been doing since 2008. We've been very proud to work with Ohio customers over the last decade, and very notably, off the bat here, I'll look at a few of the specific projects that we worked so well with across Northwest Ohio. These projects were 11 different schools between 7 different school districts that Innovatus partnered with to provide energy saving solar arrays for these schools. These were all built pre-HB6, House Bill 6. And it's hard to say if these would have gone forward today with where the policy has landed us in the current market that HB6 has left us in Ohio. Innovatus is based in South Bend, Indiana, but we're very eager to continue to work in Ohio. We, per project, we're creating anywhere from 10 to 15 or 20 blue collar jobs, contractor jobs, construction, electrician, that kind of thing. But we haven't built any projects since the passage of HB6 in Ohio. Just to dig into more of the details on these school projects, they're on average a little under a megawatt in size. And they're saving those schools anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 per year in energy expenses. And so this is a massive benefit to the schools in their budgets. Additionally, they provide STEM learning opportunities and hands-on style for students, which we take folks out on tours of these sites. They've been really, really excited to have these on their campuses, and we hope to do a lot more of these. Unfortunately, HB6 really threw a curveball at us, and we're not sure, just how many, if any, we can continue to build for Ohio schools. Innovatus does work in other areas as well. As I mentioned, utility scale projects. We are currently developing these in other states, but currently not in Ohio. And certainly HB6, as other folks on this call have pointed out, really changed the structure and the long-term predictability of the finance market when you develop these projects. These projects have massive benefits for counties in Ohio, notably through income or revenue through property taxes which come to those counties which are hosting these projects. But as I said, we are not currently developing any of these in the state, and that is a direct result of HB6. Conversely, we are looking at these in Ohio and Michigan, but again, nothing currently going on in Indiana and Michigan, but currently nothing under development in Ohio at the moment. Some long-term consequences of House Bill 6, if it was left to in place, would be folks like us really not being able to serve customers that we currently have in a pipeline. We can point directly to projects that we hope would have gone forward pre-HB6, but unfortunately had to be stalled as a result of that kind of direction of where the market was going once this piece of legislation was passed. We're very strongly in support of this being reversed and repealed, and namely so we can get back to work serving our customers the way we want to, but also create jobs in Ohio, not only for Innovatus, but our subcontractors and other folks that we work with in the state. So thank you for having us on here today. We strongly urge the repeal of this bill, and please feel to contact us with any questions on this.
Thanks so much, Tim. It's my pleasure to introduce Greg Smith, President at GSS Consulting LLC. Greg.
Thank you. So I'm Greg Smith with GSS Consulting. As Belinda mentioned earlier, I'm also the founder of Energy Optimizers USA, Lighting Optimizers USA, and Solar Optimizers USA. Had great fun with that for about 12 years, and now working with both entrepreneurs, investors, and business owners who are determining where to grow their businesses, start their businesses, and invest in businesses. I agree with pretty much everybody that's ever said. The one thing that I'll add to what was said about energy optimizers earlier is the power of the creation of jobs, not only the direct jobs, but also the indirect jobs that's been created over the past 12 years with the company. Has been over 1,000 jobs, mainly electricians, plumbers, welders, HVAC and lighting technicians, as well as architects and engineers. So to me, that's been the best part of this industry and growing these businesses over the years. Without the full repeal and proper replacement of House Bill 6, that's going to support clean and renewable energy in the industry in the state of Ohio, it's going to be hard for me to recommend to these investors, young entrepreneurs, as well as business owners, to look at the state of Ohio to invest their money and look to grow their businesses. And as a lifelong Ohio resident who's built 3 thriving businesses in the state, that does pain me greatly. So hopefully our legislators can continue to work to do the right thing for the state of Ohio and do a complete repeal of House Bill 6, as well as a proper replacement that does support clean and renewable energy to create more jobs in the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. We're lucky to get to hear from you and all the great innovative work you've done. It's my pleasure to introduce Nate Shadowan, Director of Business Development at Mike Albert Fleet Solutions. Nate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Again, my name is Nate Shadowan, and I work for a company called Mike Albert Fleet Solutions. And we are a privately held Cincinnati, Ohio-based fleet management company. And we specialize in electrification of fleets. So we actively pursue customers that range from a variety of different industries, municipality, car share, ride share, taxi, black car service, commercial service, van pool, subscription businesses, kind of the entire gamut of fleets that have the desire to go electric and reduce their carbon footprint. So we count many clients in the state of Ohio in our portfolio, and a lot of them are using electric vehicles, including the city of Columbus and several other central Ohio municipalities that took advantage of the Smart Columbus grant funding. So the city of Columbus, Ohio has 200 electric vehicles in their fleet. Dublin, Ohio has a dozen or more, and there's multiple municipalities that are following. But we have a vested interest in Ohio really becoming on par with some of these other ZEV states as far as the amount of emphasis, incentives, and grant funding that's available for fleets, both government and commercial, that are looking to electrify. So again, we are a full service fleet management company based in Cincinnati and firmly in the electric vehicle segment of the industry. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Nate. It's my pleasure to introduce Irina Filipova, Chief Operating Officer at Electrata LLC. Irina, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Ali. And I will second actually Nate's comments. My name is Irina Filipova. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Electrata LLC. We are that entrepreneurial, innovative company here in Ohio, born and bred this year during this pandemic year, to advance clean energy transportation in Ohio. We're an electric mobility startup. We bring electric vehicle charging infrastructure to our partners in the residential, commercial, as well as municipal and fleet segments of the industry. We were created to help advance clean energy economy in Ohio. We're very interested in long-term sustainable solutions to the entire energy landscape. So the House Bill 6, we feel, is very much at odds with our objective to bring cleaner energy and cleaner transportation. We know that the adoption of electric vehicles is the inevitable direction in which mobility and transportation is moving. We hope that the state of Ohio will continue to help advance electric mobility. And the more people will be consuming electricity, the more obviously energy they will be consuming. And so the sources of that energy, we feel need to also come from cleaner sources, renewable sources of energy, not fossil fuel based sources, which is why, again, we are in support of the repeal of House Bill 6. We really appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. I know we're at the top of the hour, but thank you for this, for inviting us to the panel and for adding our voice.
Thank you, Irina. It's great to talk about what the future and what an electrified future can look like for transportation. So we really appreciate your contribution. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Jake Cuss, VP of Marketing and Operations at Solar Vision LLC. Jake, take it away.
Thanks, Allie. Actually said, my name is Jake Cuss. I'm a Vice President with Solar Vision LLC. We are a Columbus-based solar developer. While we are a small team, we work with a lot of the installers that we've actually heard from today. And so in terms of project-specific jobs, I can only echo some of the sentiments that they've shared. As an installer, as a developer, working with a lot of financiers around the country, out of Ohio and Chicago, New York, there's a lot of angst around HB6 when you talk about projects in Ohio. And it's, Jeff Greenfield mentioned it, when you go to an international conference and tell folks that you're a solar developer from Ohio, and you get kind of a wry smile back. It's really unfortunate. It's something that we've seen the state do and kind of pull back a lot of the support that we had seen for renewable energy. It's something that we'd like to see changed immediately. You know, we've talked to some of these financing partners, and they wonder, you know, why Ohio? We are, you know, our entire company, we're all from Ohio, born and bred here. And we're not interested in moving the company to Illinois, to Missouri, to some of these other states that are supporting solar in a much bigger way and supporting renewable energies. We want to help Ohio kind of right the ship and come back to where we see the future going. It's really undeniable that solar and renewables will become a much bigger piece of the pie when we're talking about electricity here in the United States. And so it's something that we see Ohio needing to correct moving forward. And we're excited to be a part of that. We want to make that change. And you know, while some of the bigger projects we work on can work around House Bill 6, there's a whole class of projects that are really struggling from this. And it's something that we've worked with some of our partners to try and address. But if you're talking to companies that are trying to invest from out of state, they look at some of the things that the state has done and they're hesitant. You know, 10 acres of land in Illinois is a lot like 10 acres of land in Ohio. But they know that the state supports what they're planning on. And we're talking about projects that live much longer than 20, 30 years. And so some of the inconsistencies and some of the backwardness that we've seen from the state has been really disappointing, and has definitely led to a reduction in some of the projects that we've seen. It's interesting, I wanted to focus on the renewable portfolio standards. You look at some of our neighbors, Pennsylvania is 18% renewable by 2021, Michigan's 15% by 2021. It's in Illinois, I mentioned, is 25% by 2026. When folks are looking at large scale projects around the region, you know, I mentioned it, there's not a huge difference. There are some, you know, some differences between Michigan and Ohio, but if you're looking at that and you think, am I going to invest in this for the next 30 years? And you look at a state like Ohio that has moved backward in terms of, you know, bringing on renewable energies, or a state like Illinois that has continually pushed them forward. It's almost a no-brainer from some of our financial partners. So we'd like to change that. You know, we've seen projects leave the state, and we don't want those you know, large-scale projects with local installers and local developers like us to fall out of the state. And it's interesting, I recently read about wind energy in Texas. And it's a mistake to think that Texas is just an oil and gas state. It's an energy state. And so it's interesting to look at Ohio and our history. We have a lot of fossil fuel history, but Ohio can be an energy state as well. Solar and wind work along with other renewable energies throughout the state. And so we see no reason as to why we can't, push those forward and progress. We have taken a few steps back, but we think we can kind of continue that forward, follow the example of some of our neighboring states, and not stand dead last in terms of states that do have RPS. We don't want to be on the bottom of the file. We'd like to be up towards the top. And so I think that there's a lot of room for Ohio to grow, to bring some of these large scale projects, to bring local jobs, and to continue to grow the renewable energy sector within the state. So we wholeheartedly suggest that the Ohio General Assembly put through a full repeal of House Bill 6. It's the way that we're going. Renewable energies aren't going away. So we might as well get in front of it and help that progress forward.
Thanks so much, Jake. And of course, we know around the country, many legislatures are considering increasing their renewable portfolio standards. So let's make sure Ohio is going in the right direction. With that, as a quick reminder before we jump to our next speaker, if folks have questions, please feel free to enter those in the chat. You can send them to everyone, or you can privately send them directly to me, and I can not share your name when we share those with the speakers. With that, I would like to introduce Mike Longo, co-founder and vice president for project development at Annex Power. Mike.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Longo. Like you heard, I'm with Annex Power. Annex generates clean power from natural gas without combustion. The technology is called a natural gas turbo expander, and it uses the pressure and the flow of the gas moving through pipelines, not combustion, to spin a generator. Ohio has countless high-pressure pipelines crisscrossing the state, and we are planning for the American pilot of our technology to take place in Lebanon, Ohio, at a major convergence point for natural gas pipelines. There are hundreds of locations throughout the state that can benefit from our technology, and we expect this pilot to be the start of hundreds of megawatts of clean energy capacity that Annex can add to the Ohio electricity grid, as well as across the country. I'm testifying to urge the immediate and full repeal of House Bill 6 and to support the complete restoration of Ohio's energy efficiency and renewable energy standards. Specifically, House Bill 6 is harmful to Annex's ability to provide Ohio with clean, distributed power. I can't comment necessarily, not being from the state or being as tuned to the state politics as some of the other people on this call. So I can't comment on the legislative process to pass HB6, but what I can tell you is how it impacts our business. As a clean energy hardware startup, Annex already faces an uphill battle raising capital and deploying its technology in a traditionally risk-averse industry, natural gas. As a company that uses natural gas, which is America's most abundant America's most abundant energy resource, to generate carbon-free power, Annex should represent a no-brainer bipartisan solution, not just at the state level, but also at the federal and local level. HB6 and its elimination of waste heat to power incentives is a massive barrier to deploying Annex's technology. Despite designing our technology to be economically viable without government support, the incentives are critical for our cash flow as a clean energy startup, especially a hardware startup. The incentive also gives waste to power technologies like Annex credibility when approaching risk-averse customers in the oil and gas industry. Despite being an American startup, Annex is already committed to piloting its technology in Alberta, Canada, due to the robust incentives in the province. Europe is similarly committed to funding innovative energy solutions. If HB6 is not repealed, and I can't reiterate this enough, we want to deploy this technology in Ohio. We have our pilot site picked out in Ohio. If HB6 isn't repealed, we're not going to be able to do that. And it'll deprive Ohio of the opportunity to lead America in innovative clean energy solutions that leverage our existing natural resources. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Joe Cullen, Director of Policy and State Outreach at the Building Performance Association, BPA. Joe, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Allie. My name is Joe Cullen. I work with the Building Performance Association. We're a trade association, and we're honored to have this opportunity to speak in opposition to, for the full repeal of House Bill 6. I'm particularly grateful for the legislators who are listening in, paying attention, moving policy forward, because as I will say, and as many other speakers have referred to, you know, the policies differ significantly in every state, and state policy matters. And that drives a lot of investors' decisions. So what is Building Performance Association has 10,000 members nationwide. We have 276 members in Ohio. Many are home performance contractors, weatherization agencies, training centers, and we also have manufacturers and some local nonprofits. We represent an industry that nationwide employs 2.2 million workers. There are 81,676 energy efficiency workers in Ohio. I often joke that we're the Rodney Dangerfield of this clean energy world. And listening to testimony today, I support all the testimony I've heard on all the clean technology resources. Sometimes energy efficiency is the thought of an afterthought, but the fact of the matter is many of the homes and businesses that we retrofit can't be exported to China. So it's a truly all-American opportunity and something that Ohio should take advantage of in energy efficiency. The focus on jobs, if you take nothing away from this presentation from Building Performance Association, our total focus is on jobs. We have members throughout the country that are focused on different policy issues in their states, but the main issue that unites all of us is jobs. And make no mistake, House Bill 6 gutted energy efficiency policy in Ohio, and that ultimately will cost Ohio jobs. And so the repeal of House Bill 6 is really important. As many of the speakers before me have mentioned it before, Gary and Greg, Belinda, Don, Steve, and others, in our industry, investors will look at the playing field and they will go and invest in other places where the playing field makes sense. So the repeal of HB6, you know, I don't want to say that pre-HB6, the energy efficiency field in Ohio was perfect, but it was good. And there were definitely, I had a client or a member contact me today to say that when HB6 passed, they had to find $6 million in makeup funding because of they install low income retrofits, and they were really put in a hole. And so there were many pieces of the Ohio landscape that got things right before HB6 came along, and that stuff can be restored immediately. There's expertise in the state already on how to implement energy efficiency programs. I just wanted to point out one thing. Energy efficiency, Ohio had an energy efficiency resource standard that worked well. It's not radical policy. That was repealed by House Bill 6. There are 27 states that have energy efficiency resource standards of different flavors. It's bipartisan. There's bipartisan support for that kind of policy. And so there are many good reasons to repeal HB6, but that's one of them. The last point I wanted to make very briefly is along the same lines of how investors look at other places to locate. Attached to the testimony we submitted was a list of per capita job rates in the 50 states around the country.
And you look at our chart, and Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Minnesota, Montana, North Dakota, and Illinois are all ahead of Ohio in job creation per capita in energy efficiency. And that picture is not likely to change unless HB6 gets repealed and Ohio gets back in the game of creating energy efficiency jobs. Sorry to sound like Johnny One Note, but we do care about jobs. And that's good for our members. We're happy to talk about other issues as well. Very much appreciate this opportunity, and hopefully I didn't go over my 5 minutes, Allie.
No problem. Thank you so much, Joe. And another person who is great to talk about jobs, I couldn't think of the next best person, is Susan Monroe, Director of Economic Development at Chambers for Innovation and Clean Energy. Susan, please take it away.
Hi, thanks, Allie. And hello to everyone viewing today. My name is Susan Monroe, and I am the past president and CEO of the Van Wert Area Chamber of Commerce, where the largest wind farm in Ohio is located. I'm now Director of Economic Development for Chambers for Innovation and Clean Energy. I work with Chambers of Commerce and economic development leaders in the state to help them navigate the opportunities of clean energy development in their communities. The crop story behind the passage of House Bill 6 in 2019, as we all know, is clearly documented and deepening by the day. What is unclear is what Ohio lawmakers will do to replace House Bill 6 that will restore public confidence, create a more sustainable energy policy for Ohio's future, and actually saves Ohio ratepayers on their monthly bills. And as Allie pointed out, creates much needed jobs for Ohioans, placing the state on a stronger, more sustainable road to economic recovery. House Bill 6 was flawed in its passage in many ways, but specifically in pitting certain energy generation above others, proving to be flawed in its results for ratepayers. The bill provides billions of dollars to big energy corporations and stops short the hundreds of millions of dollars ratepayers were saving on their utility bills, thanks to the well-established energy efficiency programs eliminated by House Bill 6. Perhaps even more important is that by adopting a regressive state energy policy, House Bill 6 has led to thousands of jobs lost in the energy efficiency industry, far more than those saved via the nuclear and coal bailouts. Thousands of lost jobs, never a good thing, but even worse when one looks at the impact of COVID-19, which has clearly compacted our unemployment challenges. The good news is that by repealing House Bill 6, Ohio can recreate its energy future, build a stronger, more resilient economy, and help families and businesses save money each month. A repeal will accomplish some of that, but Ohio should invest in and adopt a more inclusive energy policy, one that Ohio will benefit for decades to come. What will this require? Well, as Brent Gravley of Cliff Bar pointed out, nothing more than predictable and stable energy policy, signaling to private sector businesses that their investment is welcome in Ohio, and not recommitting billions of dollars to bail out older energy technology that, quite frankly, will likely seek further bailouts in the future as their facilities continue to degrade, as well as support newer technologies such as solar and wind, which continues to prove to be less expensive and provide cost savings for ratepayers. Countless other states, Republican and Democrat-led, and utilities have started down this path. Ohio can learn from these states and need not be alone on a path to economically beneficial and a clean energy future. We've already heard from First Solar today, who after last year's passage of House Bill 6 pulled the majority of their solar farm development in the state, as well as other business leaders today that have shared the damage that House Bill 6 have had on their business and their decision to not further develop in Ohio. That is unacceptable. Ohio should seize this opportunity to wipe the slate clean, restore public confidence, and develop an energy policy worthy of the 21st century, just as Steve Malink from Malink pointed out, creating a better, brighter energy and economic future for the state. Thanks so much. And now I would like to welcome back Allie Gold Roberts from Ceres, who may have some questions for our panelists. Thanks, Allie.
Yes. Thanks, Susan. That was an incredible summary. And we're just so thrilled to have all of you have devoted your almost 90 minutes to us. We do have some questions that have come in. Also, I'll just say some folks sent in some details about the testimony that they'll be offering directly to legislators, which if folks are interested in doing that, I invite you to visit repealhb6.com, where you can send a letter to your legislator. Legislators are taking written testimony as we speak and are eager to hear from businesses, as we know. We obviously set up this virtual testimony opportunity as a way to continue that momentum and knowing the challenges of in-person testimony during COVID-19. So of course, just want to remind folks to please feel free to send what you wrote today, either as questions or comments, or spoke out directly to your legislators as well. So with 10 minutes left, I want to ask a couple of questions. And one of them, and I'll just invite any of the panelists or presenters who have joined us to feel free to unmute and jump on the phone. But in particular, related to the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard, or the RPS. Some people say this sounds like a mandate and that we should allow companies to make decisions on their own. What's your response to that? Why do we need a standard? How does that hold the utilities accountable? And I will let anyone who's eager, and this obviously is also applicable on efficiency as well. So anyone is welcome to unmute and jump in. Becky, you came on to video. Does that mean you're ready to take this on? I don't mean to call you out.
I will. Yeah, I mean, I'll take the first stab at this. I mean, I think it's not so much a mandate. So we're seeing and hearing today, businesses want this, and communities want this. So I don't view it so much as a mandate as setting some guardrails and signaling to the industry that your business is wanted here, and that the market is open for business. I think what happened when House Bill 6 was passed is it sent the opposite signal. It told us that we don't want your investment here, and as I noted, First Solar reacted to that.
Great. And of course, we also know that it's the signal that the utilities need in order to stop investing in uneconomic stranded assets that we are having to bail out. That's probably the best way to answer that. But let's go to another question that has come in around, what can people do in this kind of period of uncertainty while we're waiting for legislators to repeal? And in particular, we've heard an emphasis on wanting to determine what the replacement is before they can repeal. But we know we need a speedy, quick repeal and then a process of figuring out what the replacement is. But what are things people can do? Or if each of you want to share what you as your business are doing kind of in this interim period and how you're connecting with others. Well, it looks like we're getting some stuff in the chat, and I'll just kind of read that out since not everyone is ready to unmute. But I'll just say we're seeing folks talk about wanting to bring testimony directly to legislators. We're also seeing the leadership by legislators in proposing bills and proposing their ideas about what a replacement should look like, contributing to those processes and those work groups. But then, of course, direct advocacy with your lawmakers and getting in front of them. We know that they need to hear from us, and that now that the election is over, maybe there's a little bit more bandwidth to move forward on the urgency of the moment. And we had another question just around, does this really matter to companies looking to invest in the state? How do Fortune 500 companies kind of pick and prioritize states for investment? And I don't know if Susan, you want to take this question.
Sure. From an economic development standpoint, if you're sitting in an economic development office and you get in a request for proposal, and all of these economic development directors have these Excel type forms that they have to fill out for their community. And we're seeing more and more that in that top 3 or 4 questions, it's going to be, can your state provide renewable energy to my company that is procured and developed within the state? So you can check yes or no. It's no maybe. Maybe if this bill passes, it's yes or no. Can you do that right now? So if Ohio can't check in that box, yes, all these Fortune 500 companies are looking for is just an excuse to eliminate your state from contention, because they can just move on to another. So it's vitally important that our state sends a strong, strong signal that we want that renewable energy development. We want to support that. And here is the policy that we're going to set forth. That's what Fortune 500 companies are looking for right now.
I couldn't agree more, Susan. And I think when you look at the number of companies who joined our letter in calling for speedy repeal, you see a lot of Fortune 500 companies who either have renewable energy projects in Ohio or who have committed to 100% renewable energy, but have yet to do projects in Ohio and are considering where they expand for new facilities, manufacturing, and data centers. So this is really key in the future of economic development. Well, I recognize that we are almost at the bottom of the hour, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. In particular, I want to especially thank the business community for sharing their thoughts and experiences with us. We invite you again to go to Repeal HB6, where you can send a letter to your legislator. And if we weren't able to get to your question today, please feel free to email us. And we've got a slide contact information here. And we'll aim to get back to you and address your question right away. With that, thank you again. Be well, stay safe, and let's work together to repeal HB6. Have a great day.